Angle grinders are one of the most versatile machines you can get. These machines are extremely useful if you are cutting metal, stone, or you are grinding. These machines are invaluable. These are used day in, day out in industry for working on metal and stone. This particular one I've got in my hand right now is cordless. This is ideal for smaller jobs, but it's absolutely useless on bigger jobs. But to get you out of trouble, this machine is perfect. A lot of people are unsure how to mount the discs correctly in the angle grinder, so we're going to have a look at that in a minute. But what I'd like to point out is the machines are very dangerous, so when you're using one you definitely need a pair of safety glasses. They're also noisy, so you need some ear protection, and I would definitely recommend wearing a full face visor. The discs that you use in angle grinders do have a tendency to shatter. If they shatter, that machine can be spinning at 10,000 RPM. That is going to make a real mess of your face. That's why it's a good idea to wear a full face visor whenever you use a grinder. We've got three machines on the bench here. This is the large 9-inch grinder. Over here we've got the 240 volt one, and here we've got the cordless one. For this demonstration I'm going to show how to mount the discs on the cordless one because it's easier. The Metabo one is quite unusual in that it has a special kind of locking nut. That can simply be put on there with your fingers. You do not need a pin wrench in order to tighten up or loosen the flange nut on that particular machine. It's essential that you always use the side handle when you are cutting. Sometimes if you're grinding, that gets in the way, so you could remove that on a smaller grinder. On a big grinder, it's essential that that is kept in position because that will help you keep hold of it should the grinder decide to move away from you violently. I've seen quite a lot of people using grinders on YouTube and they've removed the actual guide because it gets in the way sometimes. That is a very silly thing to do. If you're using a grinder like this without the guide, it's quite possible for you to cut your wrists using the disc, or you could quite easily damage another part of your body. So it's highly important that you never remove the guide from the machine, and you should also have it so that it's adjusted in the correct position so that all the sparks and debris fly away from you. Whenever you change the disc on a grinder, you should always remove the battery or unplug the grinder from the mains. Modern machines now have a spindle lock, so when you press that button in, it actually locks the disc in position, meaning that you can change it. A lot of older machines, you used to have to get a small spanner through there to hold the spindle whilst you change the disc. You don't have to do that now with most machines. They all seem to come now with a spindle lock button. We're now going to change the disc on this machine, so I'm going to press the spindle lock button on the back, and I'm going to take the pin wrench, and then I'm going to undo the nut. Once that's undone, we can just spin that off. If you take a look underneath, you'll see that there is a spacer. That spacer always goes on that way. It's shaped on that side so that it will fit perfectly on the spindle. So that always goes on there if you are mounting a cutting disc or a grinding disc. Before you use any cutting or grinding disc in a grinder, you should check the date on it. These discs actually expire. That means that after that date, it is not safe to use them. If you use them after the date, there's a chance that the disc can break up. If it breaks up when you're using it, it can make a real mess of you. So if you just have a look on there, you'll see stamped onto the metal part, just up there, it says 2016, the first 2016. So that means that that disc is well within date, so we can use that quite safely. If we look at the grinding disc, that has the date on there of 2015, so that is also in date, so we can use that safely. If you come across one of these that you've had in your cupboard for 10 years, it's going to be out of date. Don't even risk using it, just bin it and go and buy another one. They are extremely cheap. If you're mounting a flat disc or a cutting disc, be it stone or metal, you put the disc on there that way, and you put the flange nut on so that the flat surface touches the disc. So you would put that on there until it grips the disc, and then you would press the spindle lock button and then just nip that up using the pin wrench. So that disc is now mounted on that machine correctly. The same goes for the flat disc. That is mounted the exact same way with the flange nut that way. If you look at the nut that comes with the grinder, you can see that it's flat on one side, like that. On the other side, it has a raised piece in the centre. That is for when you are mounting a grinding disc. If you wanted to install the grinding disc, it goes on there exactly the same, but this time you need to change the nut round so that the raised part fits in the centre of the disc. That ensures that the grinding disc is completely centred. So that disc is now fit correctly on there. One thing you should never do is put the wrong disc on the wrong machine. If you look at that large blade there, which is 9-inch, that is designed to go on the 9-inch grinder. The 9-inch grinder rotates at about 6,300 RPM. The smaller disc for the 4.5-inch grinder rotates at 11,000 RPM. I've seen people in the past use these larger discs. Once they get down to a small size, you can no longer use them in the big grinder. They have then took it and placed it onto the smaller grinder, which revolves at a much faster speed. So that is incredibly dangerous. If you're using a large 9-inch grinder like that and your disc gets down to that size, just bin it. Do not try and fit that on a smaller machine. It's not designed to rotate at that speed. As well as the cutting and grinding discs, you can also put a flat disc on the machine. These are very useful if you want to sand wood quickly, or if you want to remove any burrs from metal. These are extremely useful. You usually get them in packs, and to use them you need a flexible backing pad. To mount that onto the machine, you need to remove that spacer. It will not go on with the spacer on. So you just need to push that on until it's centred, and then get the special nut that comes with it and screw that into position. You can then press in the spindle lock and you can tighten that up. Using a disc like this is very useful, especially on wood. You can sand the wood really quickly, or you can even shape the wood using it.